Welcome back to another Post-Media Senators panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch with Ken Warren. And Ken, we're going to discuss the opening of the season here as the Senators prepare to face the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first two rounds of the Battle of Ontario, starting Friday night at the Canadian Tire Centre and continuing again on Saturday. It's been an awfully long off-season since you left Los Angeles on March 12th to come home because of the pause from the novel coronavirus of the NHL season. It's been over 300 days since the Ottawa Senators played a game, but they've made an awful lot of changes in that time, and I think we expect to see a lot of difference on this roster.
Has it only been 300 days? It feels like 3,000. No, absolutely. It is in a lot of ways a completely different team, and I don't know if the mandates changed completely. They were rebuilding last year, but of course they've added, with Tim Stuetzle coming in. And it looks like Drake Batherson in the lineup to start the year, and Josh Norris. So, quite a bit more of, along the lines of where this rebuilding team is going. So, some enthusiasm for fans. But at the same token, a lot to talk about because questions all over the lineup about how guys can fill the roles, right?
Yeah, and let's start with you mentioned him, so let's start with number 3 overall pick Tim Stuetzle. Ken, I was thinking I haven't seen this kind of excitement surrounding a player since Jason Spezza was taken, I think, number 2 overall by this team in 2001, or when the Ottawa Senators selected Alexander Daig in 1993 with the number 1 overall pick. I think that the expectations are high for Tim Stuetzle, but I think we've seen a player, certainly in the World Juniors, who can be a contributor.
It is going to be really interesting because, by one token, you want to sell your future, right? And he is. I mean, he had an outstanding performance at the first time a lot of us outside of that haven't scouted and seen him in Germany. First time we really saw him was at the World Juniors, and he was outstanding. So absolutely, there's a lot of enthusiasm, excitement, and the team has to build on that. By the same token, he is a rookie coming into the NHL for the first time, and he's 18. Well, I guess he turns 19. I guess it's coincidentally the season opener, to see how he can compete against the very best players in the world. So it's a hell of a challenge, and it's sort of one of those risk reward things. You throw a guy right in and see how he can compete against the very best players in the league.
Well, let's stick with the youth here, and one of the roster decisions that I think will raise some eyebrows amongst the fan base is the decision to send Logan Brown to Belleville and not keep him on the taxi squad. He was unseated by Josh Norris, and I think you can look at this two ways. A, it may be a time for a change of scenery for Logan Brown, and B, they've got quite something in Norris.
Well, yeah, it's easy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to say time for change of scenery. They got to get something back. If they trade him, right, Logan Brown, he's a first-round pick. They moved up in the draft to pick him. I know it's years ago, but it's going to be difficult for Pierre Dorion to get a good return at this point. But what is he? I mean, this is his fifth pro camp?
I think fifth, yeah.
Yeah, fifth pro camp to prove himself, whether it's injuries, whether it's a pace of play. I mean, this guy's a dominant player on a power play. I've seen him in Belleville in the AHL. He's dominant. Comes up here, he's shown what he can do in a power play here in brief stints. But it's the pace of the game. And Josh Norris, you're right. I think a lot of people very surprised at how quickly he adapted to pro hockey last year. He was outstanding down there. He seems to have a connection with Brady Tkachuk, whether they stick together for long-term, whatever. There seems to be some chemistry there. And I think, I agree with you. One of the biggest questions right now in this organization is what happens with Logan Brown.
One of the other big things that has to happen this season, and he skated on the fifth line Tuesday, and I think there may have been some message sending going on there, quite frankly, is Colin White. And Colin White started off well in training camp. We haven't been able to attend training camp until the last couple of days, but by all accounts from speaking to people there, Kenny, he started off well. He hasn't been very good of late. He skated on the fifth line. This is a guy they need to step up for them and have a bounce back season. And it's not a good sign that he's on the fifth line.
Well, this is the difficulty. You mentioned it, Bruce. This is a difficulty of not being physically at camp. There are things you can see on the ice during a workout, and I'm not making. These are the rules, and we're in COVID. It's got to be the way it's got to be. It's difficult because a coach is trying to coach his team and do whatever he can to send messages. In some ways, did he have a good camp? Did he not? Did he have a terrible inter-squad game or two? That's what we really don't know. And is it this way of saying, look, kid, you've got to give us more, even though you're ready? And I think going into camp, a lot of people are surprised to see Artem Anisimov in what looks like a lineup opening night. The other thing I think people do have to remember is, even though it's only 56 games, it is a long season. You're starting off with this condensed schedule. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement, especially on a team like Ottawa, where you're trying to find the pieces in the puzzle and how it fits.
Well, and I think you're right with the condensed schedule because it's 56 games in 113 days, and that's going to be an awful lot of hockey in a short amount of time. And one area this team has to improve, and an area, Ken, where they've made a lot of changes, is on defense. And they brought in, they've got Eric Goodbranson playing with Thomas Chabot at this point. They've got Josh Brown. They brought him in from Florida in their third pairing. They've got Braden Coburn. I honestly believe that they're not going to be able to keep Christian Wolanin out of the lineup very long if he doesn't play in the first game. I mean, he was just spectacular in the intra-squad game the other night. They have to improve defensively if they're going to make progress this season, don't they?
Oh, I think there's huge concerns. I mean, we talk about the enthusiasm off the top with all these young forwards, but on defense, huge question marks. I mean, they were, what, 30th in the league, 31st in the league in goals against. Penalty killing wasn't very good. Goaltending was inconsistent last year. A lot of pressure on Matt Murray, especially you talk about the defense. Now, Thomas Chabot, I don't know. In my opinion, I thought he leveled off last year. I didn't think he grew as a player. Maybe it was from playing too much. I thought Dylan DeMello going back a couple of years was a great partner for him. Last year, Nikita Zaitsev didn't work so well. So could Gabranson answer that challenge of playing with him regularly, or do they have to try something else? I think there's huge questions back there, and I think I agree with you. Well, Lannon, after losing most of last year, I think they got to give this guy a chance to see if he can play, because the next wave of defensemen is coming. So they got to see if Lennon can play here.
Yeah, and I think before we wrap up here, you touched on it, but obviously, I do think with the changes they made with adding Goodbranson and Brown and not knowing much of Josh Brown, but what I've heard about him is they're going to try to make people pay the price to go to their net, with the additions of Brown and Goodbranson. But getting to the net, and when you arrive there, is Matt Murray. And Matt Murray won 2 Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's coming off a difficult year. He is another guy who you'd say wants to have a bounce-back season. They're hoping he can stabilize things. And I kind of feel like it's strange, Ken, to not just talk, because it's always been about Craig Anderson, right, for 10 years.
Yeah.
So what kind of, I guess before we wrap here, what kind of job does Matt Murray have ahead of him?
Enormous, huge. I mean, we just talked about it. It's not necessarily even the quality of the players back there. It's getting a chemistry with his defense and the defense partners with each other. I mean, you're going to have waves of Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Connor McDavid, Mark Scheifele. Like, it's a hell of a division, and it's not just one line that's coming at you. It's 2 or 3. A lot of pressure on, first of all, I guess the defense, or even the forwards who matching up, then the defense, then Matt Murray. More power to him here, but this is going to be an enormous challenge for him to keep the Senators in games.
And last thing, how much will fans enjoy the All Canadian division?
You know what, I've at times been kind of sitting back saying, oh, it's going to be the same old when they come back. This is Connor McDavid 8 times. I mean, yeah. I don't know about you, Bruce. He's the guy I'd stay up late to watch, because he's playing in Edmonton. You get to see him over and over again. You get to see, I know Senators fans don't want to see Austin Matthews, but yes, you do. If you like hockey, you want to see Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and John Tavares and Joe Thornton. Like, what can he do in that team? I'm really looking forward to seeing what this division will look like.
Well, we'll take a look after the first week of the season next week. For Post Media in Ottawa, I'm Bruce Garrioch with Ken Warren. This has been the Senators Panel.